Hi and welcome back to Learn Python by Doing number 8. So now it's time to create our own iterators. We have seen examples of iterators like the filter object, the zip object, the map object, and so on. Now it's time to create our own iterators. So far we have used these two words a lot, and maybe I have used them interchangeably. And sorry if I did that, but there is a difference between them. So let's see first this difference in theory, and then we're going to see the difference in code. So an iterable is a representation of a series of elements that can be iterated over. So for example, lists, dictionaries, strings, but they don't have an iteration state such as current element. But every iterable can be converted to an iterator by using iter. We're going to see this in a moment, and typically an iterable should be able to produce any number of iterators. So, as I said, a list is an iterable, but it is not an iterator. So let's again use our fruits example list. So apple, we have watermelon, and we have grapes. Okay, so remember that for an iterator, we called this special method called next. Let's see what happens if we try to do that. So as you can see, we have an attribute error saying that list object has no attribute next. Also, we can use next directly by passing these fruits to the next function. And well, now the error is clear. It says list object is not an iterator. So this is the same as doing this. But now, if we try to do this, the error is clear. It's saying that list object is not an iterator. So it can't be clearer than that. Lists are not iterator. Okay, so now let's see what an iterator is. An iterator is the object with an iteration state. It lets you check if it has more elements using the next or this next that we have used in the previous videos and move to the next element if it exists. Okay, so now the question is how to convert a list to an iterator. Well, it's extremely simple. We simply say, let's say fruits is equal to iter fruits. Now fruits is actually an iterator. So that means that we can call this next method. And now it is giving us apple, the first element. This is equivalent by calling this next function. And it is giving us the next element, which is fruits. Then grapes, and then stop iteration exception, because now fruits is an iterator, and I have said this a lot of times, iterators can be iterated just once. Okay, so now you may be asking, how does for loops work? Because if I do this for fruit in fruits, print fruit, how it is possible that we can execute this for loop many times? So see the last line of the second point, an iterable should be able to produce any number of valid iterators. So under the hood, the for loop is creating an iterator out of fruits every time it gets executed. In fact, let's create the implementation of the for loop manually. So you'll be surprised that for loops are actually infinite whiles. So this is how for loops work. Okay, so let's remove this and let's say iterable fruits is going to be iter fruits, and we're going to say while true, we're going to try to get the next element, which is next of iterable fruits. And for example, let's print this element, and if we get this exception, which is stop iteration, then we're going to break the for loop. So this is the actual implementation of a for loop. We have implemented for loops manually. So as you can see, we can execute this however many times as we want, and it's getting the same result as a for loop. So for loops under the hood, they are creating iterators out of the iterable, and they are calling this next method on the iterator until the stop iteration error occurs. Okay, so now that you know the difference between an iterator and an iterable, it's time to create our own iterator. So for this, we're going to need to create a class. So we're going to say class, and let's say we want to return the powers of 2. So classes, they are written in capital letter. So powers of 2 is going to be the name of our class. And well, all classes have this magic method called init, which is the constructor. And the first parameter is self, and the second parameter is going to be the maximum number that we want to get the power of 2. So for our example, we can default this to 0, and we're going to say self.max is equal, dot maximum is equal to maximum. Now we have to implement 2 special magic methods called iter and also next. So the first one is going to be iter, and this is going to do 2 things. The first one is to initialize this variable n to 0, and the second thing this iter function is going to do is this iter method is going to do is to return self, so to return the instance of the class. Now we have to specify another magic method called next. So next again is going to have self as a parameter, and we're going to say if self.n is less than or equal to self.maximum, then we're going to say result is equal to 2 to the power of self.n. We're going to increment n by 1, and finally we are going to return the result. Else we're going to raise the stop iteration. So if n is greater than the maximum, we simply stop and raise the stop iteration. So we have created our own iterator. Now let's create an instance of this class. So we're going to create these powers of 2, and let's say we want the powers of 2 until 5. Okay, so we say next of the object, and okay, so here we have an error because we haven't created an iterator out of it. To create an iterator out of it, we have to pass this iter. So sorry, I forgot to do this. Iter. Now we can use this next, and now it's giving us 1, 2, 4, 8, and the last element should be 16. Sorry, the next and last element should be 32. And now we have to have this stop iteration exception. Okay, so this is how you implement iterators by yourself. And I hope now it is clear. And see you in the next video.